My name is Phoebe. I'm a student. I'm doing a Bachelor of Arts with a major in Sociology. I also work at the university in the Inquiry Centre. And I am a member of the queer LGBTQIA plus community. I like to think that I think I'm kind. I think I'm quite smart. And I like to think that I'm a good listener, but more so that I'm working towards it. So probably that I've got like aspirations to be a better person as well. So I'm in a relationship. We've been together for almost a year and a half. He's wonderful. And I also do a lot of theatre work, so I'm currently working in a production at the moment, which has been really cool. We've been doing collaborative devised work, and I've really enjoyed that, and I want to start my own little kind of company based around that idea. And I like just doing a lot of art and stuff. I'm a massive reader. I think that just comes with the territory of being in that kind of field. So I just love reading, especially books from people of all kind of like diverse backgrounds. I suppose my upbringing was kind of strange in the way that it was actually so normal. So I've got two like beautiful, loving parents, and they've basically accepted me at any kind of stage, and it's been awesome. And I've got one brother who's just graduating. He's year 12, so that's really exciting. And it's all been we have a family that's pretty we're just pretty conventional and pretty happy with each other, but it's kind of funny, the older I get, the more I realise that some things in our family are kind of strange. Like, we're actually sort of estranged from my whole mum side of her family, and I didn't find that out till last year because I just didn't think about it. And I suppose we just always spent time with Dad's family, and that was really happy and positive, and it's a real legacy of love. But yeah, I think the older I get, the more I'll probably pick up on the weird parts of us. Yeah, so my parents were really cool. My coming out was kind of funny. I sort of just went to a few queer events at uni, and then I got sort of asked if I'd be interested in being a deputy convener for the Queer Collective. And I thought that sounded like a really cool idea and really awesome. And it was also a really easy way to come out to Mum and Dad. I basically just went up to them and was like, "Oh, I'm doing this thing next year. I'm really excited." They asked me because they want more queer women. And it was just easy, and they were like, "Oh, alrighty, okay." I suppose they've got the concerns that any kind of parent's going to have when it comes to that sort of stuff, because the world is harder when you're queer, but they know that they can do the best they can to help me make everything easier. And I suppose I had family precedents too, of people being out and openly members of the LGBTI community, so that was really helpful as well. I kind of knew that my extended family would be really loving and supportive of it. I feel like this is such a thing for so many kids. I love the moments when I spent time just alone and exploring and I don't know, just exploring is in reading heaps of books. I read so much as a kid, and I don't do that as much anymore because I'm constantly scrolling through my feed, which is really bad. But I don't think it's inherently bad. It's just you can just get carried away with it. So yeah, I think there's those moments that I kind of spent alone, sort of learning new things and being really interested. I had this massive obsession with ancient Egypt, which I loved finding out about mummification and stuff, which I think kind of set precedence for me being a little bit of a weirdo. But yeah, I loved that. I loved spending time just by myself kind of. And I think it's cool as well doing that to sort of discover a little bit more about who you are. I think you get quite an idea about the kind of person you are from the people you surround yourself with. They act kind of as mirrors, but I think it's important as well to spend a lot of time by yourself to be a bit more reflexive. And obviously you're not consciously doing that as a kid, but I think you are kind of subconsciously doing that and sort of forming an identity for yourself, which is really cool.
What was the hardest thing growing up?
I don't know, it was trying to figure out, I suppose, the best part and the worst part are the same. Figuring out who I was really hard, especially growing up as a young woman. That felt very I felt very restricted in so many ways. There's this idea of like growing outwards, growing sidewards. So it's kind of like you're expected as a woman, and as like especially as a queer person, you're expected to have this level of maturity that is beyond your years, so you can navigate all of like the shit that's going on around you. But they don't. You're not allowed the space to grow up, so you end up going outwards. I think that was probably, I felt that very heavy as a kid, especially with my mum's lovely, but there was this one moment where we were all like, we were out with our family friends, and we were like, they had a boat, and all of the boys kind of went on like this boat ride, and then all of the women were pretty much left to like clean everything up. And I said to Mum, I was like, that doesn't feel fair. Like I had this gut instinct as a kid for like things that just didn't feel right. I was like, that feels wrong to me. And of course it's like, that's like internalized like patriarchy right there. But Mum just said like, oh, you're a woman, like get used to it. Which was just like, there was this moment where I was like, I think that was like the birth of my feminism. I was like, no, I'm not gonna get used to it. I'm gonna make my own space. So yeah, being restricted, I think, was like one of the hardest parts of growing up. There's this idea as a queer person, you're sort of trained from the moment that you sort of come out to yourself, or even before then, you're sort of trained to really look for signs of danger. You're also trained to look for like the signs of safety, like rainbows and stuff. So it's kind of like you can't switch that off. It just doesn't work. Even I'm in a relationship at the moment with a man, so we're pretty like, we look like a normal heterosexual, like cis-normative couple. But it doesn't mean that like I don't face that prejudice still, because I'm obviously, everything that happens and every decision that is getting made at the moment is going to affect not only me now, but it's more me in the future as well. So yeah, and there's also, I face like, as a queer bisexual person, I face a lot of invisibility, which is just really annoying. I don't see myself in media. It's like they don't know that the word bisexual exists for some reason. And that just makes it really hard, and there's a lot of devaluing of your experience, especially if you have straight passing privilege, which is just really annoying. It means that you're kind of like, you never feel completely comfortable in straight circles or in queer circles, and that's an experience that's common with a lot of bisexual, pansexual people. Yeah, I think the invisibility and like the constant kind of having to be sort of monitoring my surroundings is the hardest part of being queer. And I get tired a lot too. Get tired of it. Tired of all the queer phobia. Just like, it's so, no, I just can't deal.
What is the best thing about being a queer woman, about being part of the LGBT community?
It's celebrating that difference. I think it sounds cliche, but literally the pride of it. I'm a big like fan of looking back at what had to be done, so I can be the person I am now, and feeling that sense of pride and that sense of gratefulness for everyone who came before me. I think that's probably my favorite part of being in the queer community. It's that real, like, just that real tenacity and that toughness. I know there's a lot of it, like being queer, it makes you, disproportionately more likely to face a lot of different forms of like oppression and like hardship. Like, you're more likely to experience like homelessness and mental health issues and violence, obviously, which is just awful. But I think there's a level of like, it's made us tough as a community. We can get through most things. We've got through so many things in the past, and we'll get through so many things in the future, and we're getting through things right now. And I think that's also really like speaks to the fact that when things do get hard, we come together and we really try and look after one another, which is really beautiful. It doesn't always happen. There are moments of like, internalized phobia and like biphobia and transphobia and all that sort of stuff in the queer community. That's something I'm not so proud of at all, but I think that idea of educating people so we can get past that and really come together more, and just that support, that's my favourite part of being in the queer community. I went to the same school for 13 years straight. So I remember going into year 7. I remember being I think I was a lot more self-conscious than I remember being. I'm quite like, but even now, it's funny now, I'll be like, I'm so comfortable in my own skin. But even now I have doubts all the time. And I think doubt's healthy, but I think I had a lot more of it when I was like 12. I remember really wanting to be like this tanned, maybe blonde. Like, it's really funny. I was always really, I do have memories of being like pretty comfortable in my skin. I'm like very privileged in the fact that my body looks very similar to how we want bodies to look. Like I'm a white woman, I look very healthy. So yeah, like I'm very privileged in that sense, but there's still like this next level of beauty that I would like look to and be like, I wish I was that. And I was also hyper aware of the fact that I was a bit different to everyone around me. I think I was a little bit more, I overthought, but like I thought a lot about social situations and certain things that came into that, which obviously feeds into like what I do now as a sociologist. Like that's what I do, like is go in and look at social setups and like what's actually going on here, what's the subtext of this situation. But doing that as like a 12-year-old kind of makes you a little bit of a weirdo. So yeah, I remember just this feeling of being really, really quite confident in who I am, but at the same time really doubting it. I didn't have it like overly hard at school, and also like I think a big factor of that as well is that like I have like, I'm going to say privilege so many times at this, but like I had the privilege of being someone that school like academically works for the structure of that. Like I go well in it. I was very anxious, I was a very high achiever. That hasn't really changed, and I'm a little bit more chilled out about it, but I had like quite intense anxiety at school of like wanting to perform all the time and never saying no to anything, which now I'm a little bit better at saying no to things. I'm still working on that, but yeah, I think I had it like, it was pretty good. But there were a lot of things that could have been a lot better. I hang out with a lot more people now. Like it's funny, like I hang out with more queer people now. I might have been hanging out with queer people in high school, but I don't know, none of us were really out. And it wasn't a place that I felt like I could be out. Which it's just ridiculous because there were some people who were out at my school and I probably would have been safe. I made like a lot of queer themed stuff, so I don't think it was a massive surprise to anyone when we graduated and I did come out, but it just wasn't normalized, and I think it was kind of like a micro scale of something that's quite macro. In the world, where it's just like there's so much cisnormativity and heteronormativity that I just didn't occur to me that I would be happier if I was like, you know, out. And yeah, so I suppose I'm a lot happier now that I'm out of high school. It's a little bit to do as well, as I was saying before, like knowing myself a little bit better is really helps. That more choice of who I get to spend my time with is really good. I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for the people I spend my time with now. I hang out with people who are like, I have the utmost respect for. So that makes me a lot happier than hanging out with people that I just was there with, because school, you just end up in people who are like in your area, or my school was like a Anglican primary school, so it's like just people who could like afford to be there as well. So yeah, I think I'm a lot happier now just because there's like, I can have more choice. If initiatives were implemented like safe schools, or even things where it's like, when you're in, I mean, it sounds really, you know, every queer person's going to say this, but when you're in like sex ed, just going past or like having equal focus on like penis and vagina sex to like other kinds of sex, I think that would be like really helpful. I remember we had one one class on same-sex attraction, and it was basically just like warning us all, like, they're like, oh, if you're a person with a penis who's gonna have sex with another person with a penis, wear a condom because AIDS. Like, that was basically it. Which is really, really not, I don't think it's good enough. Obviously the school as well, they're attached to like an Anglican diocese, so there is that element of like religion that's in place. But I don't remember ever really having like anti-queer stuff like shoved down my throat. We actually had like one of our pastors, I think reverends, pastors, I'm not quite sure about the term we use, but one of our school chaplain, when I was graduating, she was awesome. She like every time, I think it was like maybe around when Orlando was happening too, no, Orlando was after I finished school. Something was happening in the queer community, and she acknowledged it. Like, it was actually acknowledged. It was allowed to be acknowledged. It was made visible, and it was given support, which was really positive to see. She was a very, very queer friendly chaplain, which was really cool. But yeah, I just seeing more normalized stuff. But that's something that needs to be fixed in the wider world too. The best thing about high school is quite similar to the best thing of like being a kid, was the time that I like actually got to like be really reflexive, and kind of figure myself out a little bit more. I loved spending time just in like the art room. It sounds so cliche for like the kind of person that I am, but like I spent so much time in the art room and the drama room just like making shit. And that was really, really positive, because it was like, I'm not only making something that like a piece of art, I'm making like an identity for myself. I suppose it was like, it's those usual worries when you leave school, which you look back on and you think, oh my goodness, like I can't believe I was like concerned or worried about that. Like, I think you're gonna always be worried about finding your people. As a queer person, that's a worry. Like, it's like, oh, even if you've managed to find a bunch of people who do accept you, I can imagine that it'd be very hard to go out and be like, oh, now I've got to find a whole bunch of new people who are going to accept me for who I am. But I suppose I just like to like say to anybody who's really concerned about that there's lots of people out here that are going to love you, they're going to accept you. It's a big wide world out there. There's like this one YouTube video clip of her name's Coco Peru, and she's a drag queen, and she did a cover of the song like Feeling Good by Nina Simone. And it was all like, and like she interjected all this dialogue, and it was just like, it's a big wild world out there, and like there's going to be people here who are like waiting for you with open arms. And I think that's a pretty common experience for a lot of queer people. Like you will find people who will accept you for who you are. And I suppose just like normal like worries about like, well, not normal, like trying to dull them down, but just the worries about like who you're going to be and what you're going to do. And I think as long as you just keep doing something, don't stop. Give yourself time. It can be really awesome. I didn't take a gap year, but I could imagine that would be really awesome. I have friends who've taken gap years, and like I've seen them grow throughout that gap year so immensely, because they've actually been for the first time ever really having to be in charge of structuring their own time and stuff. But in saying that, they're constantly doing something. They're working, they're traveling, they're creating. I think it's beautiful. You're at a point of actual possibility where you're about to attain so much more space and so much more time. And I think you should just grab it with both hands. I suppose it's like looking back on it now, like there's those personal things that you're really proud of, and then there's like bigger, more tangible things. Like we just had our Pride, and I had like a pretty decent hand in like organising that. That's really cool. I was like, oh my goodness, like if 2 years ago you'd A, like tell me that I'd be like out and proud, and B, told me I was going to be organising this massive event, I would have been like, no, but I did it, like it happened. And then there's also like, and theatre stuff as well. Like every time I create something new and find a different element of my like artistic voice, which sounds super wanky, but all creatives know what I mean. I feel really proud of that. But then there's just more things like I feel like I am becoming a better listener, like I said in the start of the video, trying to be better at listening to people and really taking in what everyone's experiencing around me. I think I'm doing that a bit better now, and I'm really proud of that. And yeah, I suppose just achieving like that next kind of level of realizing who I am. That's something that I'm like just am so like happy to have achieved, and I'm pretty like to be at this stage, 19, still riddled with doubt but happy. I think that's pretty good. I've been thinking about the ideas of like being a grown-up. I think it's relative. So I would probably look very grown up to like I even had this moment where I was like walking towards this workshop, and I was walking there with my other friend who's like my age, and we're at the same stage at uni and stuff. And we were walking there and we were like with one other person, and we were talking about uni, and she was like, "Oh, you guys are in uni? That's so cool." She's in like year 11, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, we would look really like, we'd look like proper adults to you. That's so bananas." Whereas like for me, I have to look towards people like my mum to be like, oh, that's what an adult looks like. I think a lot of adults are still just trying to figure it out, and you just get better at not letting on that you're trying so hard, I think. I think it's really relative, the idea of being properly grown up, and I suppose because of that, I don't think anybody ever really is fully grown up. I think you just learn more and you keep learning more.
What honest piece of advice would you give to a young person still in high school who is like you, who is finding themselves part of the LGBTQIA community? Like, what would you like to say to your younger self?
Oh my goodness, keep going. You are so much more like amazing than you actually think you are. The things that you are doing right now as a marginalized body are incredible. It's like you're doing like little miracles every day when you get up. Not to like clap people just for being like members of diverse groups. I don't think that's right. But like knowing that like the fact that you just keep on going on, that's so cool. I think anybody that can like get out, try and get something out of their day, whether that like, and it doesn't even have to be like a massively big achievement. I think that's incredible, especially when you're so young. Being young sucks. People tell you that high school is like the time of your life. Like, yeah, to a certain extent, maybe some things are like, you have some things easier, but you actually have so many things that are like way harder than people think. So yeah, just keep moving forward. Keep being who you are. I sound like a Hallmark card right now, but that's actually my genuine advice, is just keep going. Keep going. The online space is like awesome. Every time we ever like talk about resources for young queer kids, it's always like go and watch some YouTube videos. Like there's some amazing channels out there, like Ash Mardell, they're amazing. Trying to think about who else. There's so many. Like, and if you're a young person, you probably like know, and you've probably spent hours watching those videos anyway. So yeah, online's really cool. I feel like finding like engaging in that community can be really, really like beautiful.
What do you think is the most beautiful thing about you?
Oh, the most beautiful thing about me. I suppose the most beautiful part of me. I think I'm going to sound like a broken record, but my ability to give space to others, I think that's something that's quite nice. Actually, as well, like I'm working towards it, but I think I can be quite like I'm really willing to admit when I'm wrong and when I have to be better at something. And working on that, like being more humble, I think it just makes you accessible to so many more people. I think it makes you just easier to approach as well. And I think you'll just make like, yeah, I think one of the most beautiful parts about me is my ability to like admit when I'm not being quite so beautiful. My name is Phoebe. I'm a queer bisexual woman and I'm doing dandy.